Okay, in the last video on the group dynamic thing, as I see it, I mentioned how various cases, some imply that there's a relationship for particular members that want to be in the group and so on and so forth. But I'm going to talk about what should be a simple case and how it goes. Okay, imagine a really straightforward caretook list that it, by its very name and definition, makes sense that one person gets to decide, right? But I was mentioning the problems of one person deciding, a philosophical group and getting to say who's a scientist or not, or who's a this or not. But this is separate. This example is, let's say it's Piero's favorite videos, a list I made, or favorite channels rather. Now, who could decide that but me? So this is one where, you don't even want official members, right? The people who I happen to like their channels, I don't want them to come join my group, say, yeah, I am his favorite, and then get to vote for some other caretaker, for example, that gets to decide what's in a list called Pyrrha's favorites. Doesn't make sense, right? We let the person, I'm an individualist, it's obvious, the person decides that. Except for, in my system, it doesn't work like that. You don't have, it's not defined ultimately on a single list. So now that person might never allow self-attribution in that group. So, they always get to control the, caretaker attributed part of the list. And in a case like that, that would be the default that in general you would consider the default or the official list in that case, right? However, let's say I have my favorite vids and I say Stanford and I say Harvard and I say API, and some guy, probably a troll, is watching my viewing history and going, what? He's watching Candy Boots Shaker Booty 417. And that guy wants to add to my favorites this other channel. With my system, he can do that. He can do that and express the fact that he thinks I'm just fronting through this list trying to make myself look good. And people in his trust network would see that. Now, granted, people that were just trolls that weren't trying to catch me on something, but just trying to make me look bad, they'd probably attribute all kinds of bullshit. But nobody would see it except for people that had chosen to see it in their trust network, probably their other stock accounts, their other instances of their multiple personalities would see that. And that's fine. They themselves would see it, and it's just a personal joke. Ha ha, wouldn't it be funny if that was what his favorite list looked like? Most people will want to know when they're looking at a list like that what I'm saying I like. Okay, so that will still maintain a dominance in that kind of list. But you see how that's perspectivism. People coming to find out what I say I like have a certain perspective and would want to see the list a certain way. People that don't like me and want to see a parody list from a pretend world of some troll that has assigned my favorites to me can see that. People that want to follow some truth seeker that calls truth to the establishment and to, that has actually proven that I have different favorites that characterize me better. People can browse that and see that, and that's all fine. Even though, like all the internet, 95% of that alleged stuff will just be nonsense and random and noise and uninformative. But it's in the lower levels. You have to go out of your way to see that. Okay, but you can go out of your way, and once you've gone out of your way once and you've set up a trust network right or voted the way you want it to be, it's not extra labor. You don't have to work harder. You just have to go out of your way to set it up so that that's what you're browsing by default. And you'll still have the drop-down lists with the alternate trust networks and the trusted trust networks and the trust networks established by the site or whatever else that passes as an authority for you that you have chosen. You still have those available to check out or to choose as your own default. So, the point of this is just that even in a simple case where I'm listing my favorites, what might be as subscriptions, like, I would not be listed on Gary's subscriptions, but he types my name in. So if Gary had a list in subscriptions, and groups have to be public at this site, You don't have to say you're following a group. You could always name it random group of channels, and they could be the channels you're looking at, and nobody knows you're looking at them. Like in this case, I know Gary searches my videos and watches my videos. I could add myself to his favorites. I wouldn't, because if I went to his favorites, I'd want to see what he was claiming were his favorites. I wouldn't want to skew that. But somebody else might do that, and some other browser might like to view that because it's like a commentary on, well, here's what he really likes. And then that comment might be right or wrong, whatever. It's just another way to make a comment. Okay, but when you make these kind of comments, they go into the database, and they can be correlated, and prototypes can be developed and extracted from these networks of related judgments. So, you know, this is me using a very non-classical model of sets. A classical model of sets would be just have one set and then worry about the necessary and sufficient conditions that you need to develop for putting someone in that set. But as a practical thing, like applied mathematics versus pure mathematics, that doesn't work out. Right? There is no such rule that makes that set correct. There's perspectivism. What you need are rules that allow some parts of the definition of the set to be shared and other parts to be personal, ever more personal, you know, personal to subgroups all the way down to personal to an individual. Then you have the full spectrum. You have the ability for a group consensus to be detected, hopefully not followed or obeyed. And you have the ability to have your own self-consensus, what you think is appropriate, you know, fit to the category at hand. And everything in between, subgroups, as well as the real model for me as an individualist, using my own definitions and taking advantage of the ability to browse the trust networks of others. I plan to learn more browsing other people's trust networks about what people think than from what they say, probably in the end. I mean, what they say is only to provide, you know, so to speak, the thing that can have relationships. And then the trust network talks all about the relationships, and that's the real information. You know, in my opinion, for reasons I have gone over and over for years that I might as well be talking backwards. Okay.